How are you feeling? Okay. All right. That's it. This place, it takes us back about 1,000 years right here. So the Sinawa people, who knows what Sinawa means in Spanish?
Oh, no había agua aquí. Hace 100 años los luteros se establecieron en este lugar.
So what it means is seen without agua, water. So
see with the water, agua.
I guess the first thing is that why we're here is an idea to create a Sedona Magical Mystery Tour. So this is the Magical Mystery Tour. We've got buses and everything, and Arizona Spinal Cord Injury Association sponsored the buses and the drivers and the fees, some of the fees to get into the parks, and it's just working out really beautifully. So I really appreciate it. Give yourselves a hand, I think.
Yay.
Yeah. Very cool. And has everybody here been to Sedona before?
One time.
Yeah, one time, never before. Everybody else has been here? Anybody who's new? Well, first time here. A couple new people. Sedona has been a place that people have come to. We went to Montezuma's Castle, and that goes back 1,000 years, but the history in this valley right here goes back somewhere between 12 and 15,000 years for sure, that we have good evidence of, and there's some evidence that it could be closer to 30,000 years of human habitation right here in the Verde Valley. So we go way back to the Paleo-Indian groups, 12 to 15,000 years ago. If you find rock art in our area, it's usually like scratch marks on the wall. Just on that mountain right over there are places that have pictographs and petroglyphs. I mean, it's all over the place from ancient times. The archaic Indian groups came up until about 3,000 years ago. People come at the same time the Anasazi. People come all the way through the southwest, the Four Corners area of the southwest, and they stay here for 800 or 900 years, and about 1200 or so to 1250, there's a fairly sudden disappearance of these people. So we have a lot to learn from the ancient ones. We don't know for sure much about them, but what we do know, we know from modern day Native American people. So we go and we find the Hopi people here. We've talked to some Hopi people who come and go out of Sedona. It's not too far away from the Hopi land. We have contact with the Navajo people. It's a crossroads of all these different cultures. To the south, the south and east are the Apache people. So it's a crossroads. We have Chippewa represented here today from northern Michigan. This Michael is from there. So it's quite a history. So we get as much as we can get. If it's been this way for the modern Native people, we can make some assumptions about ancient people. So what we know is that they were trading all the way into the Yucatan, and now we're in this place where people lived. They had corn, they had squashes, they had beans, they had other things that they ate, and they actually could grow crops right along the rivers here. So Oak Creek comes out of Oak Creek Canyon to the north and west, or north and west a little bit, north and east a little bit from here. Comes right down out of the canyon to the base of this mountain. This is Cathedral Rock, and it makes a hard right turn. Now that's kind of unusual. Why would a river just suddenly turn directions? So we wanted to get a little bit into the history, or the geological history. We're here in a place that's 330 million years of geological history. So it's a little hard to get the concept of that. How far back in time that is? There was only one continent at this time, and it was called Pangaea. And the red sand came in here in that time period. Now Pangaea broke apart and more or less forms the continents that we know of today. So Australia is here. If you see South America and Africa, they kind of fit together. Well, there's a good reason for that, because they broke apart. Over the 330 million years, we've had 7 different oceans come here on this land and go away again. We see the evidence, the fossil remains from those times. If you've been to the Grand Canyon, you stood on top of the Kaibab Formation. That's a recent ocean, and the dinosaur time would have been after that. So you would be actually standing on the Grand Canyon in the time period of the dinosaurs there. We're that much farther back in time. That was recent. We're way back in time, to a time when there were plants on the earth. There may not have been so many animals on the earth, or other creatures by then. So that far back. The other thing is that the sandstone here has a lot of iron in it, and that's why you have the iron color. Who's heard about the vortex energy of Sedona? Now, if you just think about that, it's what you've been seeing today. Is this a visual place? I mean, what you can see with your eyes here is striking. It catches your attention. There's even in modern design, like you think about computer science. Well, what if our computers could be an experience that would be similar to going to the edge of the Grand Canyon? where you look off and you go, oh, the awe of it all. Something like being in Sedona, that could become the design principle of our world. Wouldn't that be cool? There are people thinking that way. For who we are now in this place, you just think about the geology of it, and does seem to be a special energy here. And not only that, because the way we're programmed, the way we get who we are in our world is through imprinting. So as children, everything is new and bright, and it imprints on who we are. And people say things, we get things from our parents, all that programming. So today, you have had new imprints. When something is striking enough, it can take us back like we're children. So I invite you to be like children today and enjoy the time, enjoy being with each other, enjoy learning like you were 3 years old again. So it's like you push the books up against the wall and you reach up and you can finally reach the light switch and you can turn it on. How cool! What's going to happen to the light switch next? On and off and on and off and on and off. You know, kids learn that way, so be childlike. The other thing about the geology, 330 million years, we're on a fault line here. About 75 million years ago, there's an earthquake, and it caused an uplift. So the land went like this, and as you notice, the farthest, highest point you could see off in the distance is called the Mogollon Rim. 2,000 feet straight up from Sedona. In half an hour, you can be from 4,500 feet above sea level right here to 6,500 feet above the Mogollon Rim. You're 7,000 at Flagstaff. You're 7,000 to 7,300 feet above sea level at the Grand Canyon, and it comes off even lower than we are here when you get there. But this place, the Mogollon Rim goes more than 200 miles across, all the way to New Mexico to the south and east, all the way to Ash Fork, Arizona, north and west from here, near Interstate 40. So you think about a kind of event like that. The Oak Creek Canyon is actually a side fault off of the big fault that created the Mogollon Rim. So the water comes out and has followed the fault line. Well, what we think now is that the fault itself turned, and that's why the water turns and now goes west and a little south. So it converges with the Verde River on the other side of this valley. So on the Mogollon Rim this side, we have the Oak Creek. On the Verde River side, the Mingus Mountains are there. The Verde River flows down along that. We're right in between these two rivers. So we're like in the Wish Fork, if you think of it that way. And if you think in energetic terms, I mean, that's a pretty interesting thing. We're between two waters in a place that has an incredible amount of iron and an incredible amount of energy. You'll see crystals in the rocks. The whole Red Rock area, we think, is the vortex place. And it's a place that people have been attracted to for thousands and thousands of years. The reason I picked this spot is that this is Cathedral Rock. See the spires right in the middle there? In the Yavapai story, can you guys hear me okay? With the wind and everything? In the Yavapai story, it's first man and first woman. Now the Yavapai were the people that were here when the first European people came to this place. The Yavapai lived all around. Now I've been talking about the cliff ruins. People lived up on the cliffs, but that's not where the Yavapai lived. They were much more modern. When asked about the people who lived in the cliffs, they said, we don't know, because those people already came and they went already. So the Yavapai were here. They're still here. They're close by, just by Camp Verde. They're also over at Prescott, Arizona. But in the Yavapai story, this couple, first man and first woman, are walking along, and they're down by the water. This is Oak Creek right here. And they argue all the time, this couple. And they wake up an old snake. And the old snake, you know, it's a mythical time, and the snake, he says, well, he comes up to them and he says, why do you argue all the time? And they keep on arguing and arguing and arguing. And he says, I'm going to give you 3 chances so that you shouldn't be arguing anymore. And so, sure enough, he gives them the 3 chances, and they still argue. They argue about arguing. They argue about the 3 chances. They argue about everything. And he says, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn you to stone. I'm going to put you up in the rocks in the middle there. He says, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn you back to back so that you can't argue anymore. So the one on the right is the female form. She's the one with the big blue eyes. And the male is on the left. At a different angle, you can get more of the male excitement. The people, they were produce farmers because they could grow apples here and other produce. You know, the good place to sell produce, if you lived here, at the turn of the century, a little bit before that, was in Flagstaff. Now, how do you get to Flagstaff from here? If you go, you hit the Mogollon Rim, 2,000 feet straight up. So how do you get there? They had to go 11 miles south, kind of the way we came, and up over onto the top of the rim, and it's a 60-mile trip from Sedona to Flagstaff when you go that way, over hard lava rock. So it wasn't a very easy trip to make. And Carl Schneble is a man who got here right about the turn of the century, and he thought this was a wonderful place. They had to come to Jerome. The Mingus Mountains across the way, you've seen those? If not, we'll look. There's a town on the side of the mountain called Jerome. It was an old copper mine in running to become state capital at one time, so that's where he came, and then he got horses, and they came across to this place, which was more Indian territory. It wasn't settled much yet. And there were only a few settlers here, and he got everybody together because he kept looking for a way to go to Flagstaff that would be better. And they all chipped in $300 each when he got a good idea. And they built Schneble Hill Road. It goes right up the side of the Mogollon Rim back over there, and after that they could go to Flagstaff in 2 to 4 days. So they could make a trip about once a week, and they became much more profitable. And so the little town began to flourish. And Carl, you know, they wanted a name for the town. Carl wanted it to be a more official kind of town. In those days, that was considered to be a very good idea. So he talked to a relative in the Postal Service who said, well, Carl made a list of names. And the Postal Service guy looks at his list and says,